1973, Juilliard School, 2 a.m. Two strangers sat in their dorm room, unable to sleep. Robin Williams and Christopher Reeve had just met that day, assigned as roommates in the most prestigious acting program in America. They were opposites. Williams was chaos, energy, jokes at midnight. Reeve was discipline, structure, silence. But that night, Williams asked a question that broke through the awkwardness. What's your worst fear? Like the thing that terrifies you more than death? Reeve didn't hesitate. Losing control of my body, being trapped inside myself. Williams nodded slowly. Mine's silence. If I stop moving, stop talking, I'll just disappear. Then Williams said something that would echo across 22 years. Whoever faces their nightmare first, the other one has to show up, no matter what. Deal? They shook hands. 22 years later, Christopher Reeve lay paralyzed in a hospital bed, his worst fear realized, ready to die. And Robin Williams showed up. What happened in that hospital room and the promise Williams made that nobody knew about kept Reeve alive for 9 more years and explained why Williams wore a tiny Superman pin every single day until his death. September 1973, room 304, Juilliard School. The room was small, barely big enough for 2 twin beds, 2 desks, and the massive egos of 2 young actors who'd just been accepted into the most prestigious performing arts program in America. John Houseman's advanced program only took 2 students that year. Out of hundreds of auditions, just 2, Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams. They'd met that morning during orientation. Reeve was impossible to miss. 6'4", classically handsome, Ivy League from Cornell, carrying his belongings in organized, labeled boxes. Williams was short, wiry, arrived with 2 garbage bags of clothes and manic energy that filled any room he entered. They shook hands. Reeve said, "Nice to meet you." Williams did 3 different character voices in response. It was going to be a long year. By 2 a.m. that first night, neither could sleep. Reeve because he was a light sleeper, and Williams was making sounds in his bed, not snoring, but muttering, doing voices, having full conversations with himself. Williams because his brain never shut off, not even at night. Finally, Reeve sat up. "Are you awake?" "Oh, thank God," Williams said, sitting up immediately. "I thought I was going crazy alone. Want some ramen? I have chicken flavor or beef or shrimp. Actually, they all taste the same." Reeve wasn't hungry, but he said yes anyway. They sat on the floor between their beds, sharing a pot of ramen cooked on an illegal hot plate Williams had smuggled in. They talked about stupid things at first, where they were from, what they'd studied before Juilliard, the other students in the program. But then Williams asked the question that changed everything. Okay, real talk. Not the stuff we tell people at parties. What's your actual worst fear? Like the thing that terrifies you more than death? Reeve put down his ramen cup. Most people asked small talk questions at 2 a.m. What's your favorite movie? What music do you like? But this guy, this weird, manic stranger he'd known for 14 hours, was asking about existential terror. Reeve could have deflected, could have made a joke. But something about the way Williams asked, not like it was a game, but like he genuinely wanted to know, made Reeve answer honestly. "Losing control of my body," Reeve said quietly. "Being paralyzed, trapped inside myself but fully aware, conscious but powerless. That's the thing that keeps me up at night." Williams stared at him. "That's incredibly specific. I know it's stupid." "No, it's not stupid. It's terrifying." Williams was quiet for a moment. "Mine's silence. Not like actual quiet, but the silence that happens when I stop moving, stop performing, stop making people laugh. I'm afraid that if I stop, I'll just disappear. Like I was never here. Like I don't exist unless I'm making noise." Reeve looked at his roommate, this chaotic, brilliant stranger who couldn't sit still for 10 seconds, and understood him completely. "That's not stupid either." They sat there for a moment, 2 22-year-old kids who'd just confessed their deepest fears to someone they barely knew. Then Williams smiled, that manic grin that would later become famous. "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're making a pact, right now." 2 a.m., room 304, Juilliard School. What kind of pact? Whoever faces their nightmare first. And let's hope it's neither of us, but If it happens, the other one has to show up no matter what, no matter when, no matter where. We don't let each other face it alone. Reeve thought about it. This was insane. They'd known each other for one day, but something about this moment, this conversation, felt important, like they were building something that would matter. Okay, deal. Williams held out his hand. They shook, and in that moment, two strangers became brothers. What nobody knew that night in 1973 was how differently those fears would manifest. Williams' fear of silence would drive him to 6 USO tours, thousands of performances, a career of constant motion that never stopped even when he desperately needed rest. Reeve's fear of losing his body would become horrifyingly, tragically real 22 years later, but that pact they made at 2 a.m., that would save Reeve's life. The next 4 years at Juilliard proved how opposite they were. Reeve would wake up at 6 a.m., go for a run, eat a precisely measured breakfast, arrive at rehearsal with his lines memorized and his character analysis written in detailed notebooks. Williams would stumble in at 9:30, having slept 3 hours, survive on coffee and cigarettes, and improvise his way through scenes with such manic brilliance that John Houseman didn't know whether to expel him or give him an award. But they worked. Reeve would share his lunch when Williams couldn't afford food, which was often. Williams would make Reeve laugh when the pressure of being Houseman's perfect student became too much. They'd stay up until 3 a.m. arguing about Stanislavski versus Meisner technique, about whether comedy was harder than drama, about everything and nothing. They balanced each other. Reeve was the anchor. Williams was the sail. After graduation, their careers diverged wildly. Reeve went to Broadway, got rave reviews, then headed to Hollywood, where he was cast as Superman in 1978. Suddenly, he was famous, globally recognized, the symbol of hope and heroism. Williams went to San Francisco, performed stand-up in tiny clubs, got discovered by a TV producer, and became Mork from Ork. Two completely different paths, two completely different kinds of fame. But through it all, through marriages and divorces, through Williams's cocaine addiction and recovery, through Reeve's struggle with being typecast, through every high and low, they called each other every week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes just to talk about their kids, sometimes just to hear the other person's voice, because that's what the pact meant. Not just showing up for nightmares, showing up for everything. By 1995, they'd been best friends for 22 years. Reeve was 42, married to Dana Morosini, had children, was trying to break free of the Superman image with more serious, dramatic roles. Williams was 43, divorced and remarried, 3 kids, doing films that range from Mrs. Doubtfire to Dead Poets Society. They were both at the peak of their careers. Life was good. The nightmares from that 2 a.m. conversation seemed like distant, youthful paranoia. Then May 27th, 1995 happened. Culpeper, Virginia. Christopher Reeve was competing in an equestrian event. His horse stopped abruptly at a fence. Reeve's hands tangled in the reins. He couldn't throw himself clear. His head hit the fence. The sound his neck made when it broke. Witnesses said they heard it from across the field. His first and second vertebrae shattered. In 1 second, Christopher Reeve went from Superman to a man who couldn't move anything below his neck. The nightmare he'd described at 2 a.m. in 1973, losing control of my body, being trapped inside myself, had become his reality. For 6 weeks, Reeve lay in a hospital bed at the University of Virginia Medical Center, unable to breathe without a ventilator, unable to move, unable to feel his own body. And for 6 weeks, he didn't smile, not once. He'd whisper to Dana in the middle of the night, "Maybe we should let me go." He was serious. He was Superman. The man who'd inspired millions to believe they could fly, and now he couldn't even scratch his own nose. The irony was suffocating. Robin Williams found out about the accident the same day it happened. He was on a film set in Los Angeles when someone told him. He left immediately, flew to Virginia. But when he got to the hospital, the doctors wouldn't let him see Reeve. Too many visitors. Reeve was too fragile. Williams went home, called every day, left messages. Reeve never called back. Williams tried again a week later. Same result. For 6 weeks, Williams couldn't get through, and it was destroying him. Because 22 years ago, they'd made a pact. Whoever faces their nightmare first, the other one shows up, and Williams couldn't show up. He was failing the most important promise he'd ever made. Then in July, Williams called Reeve's hospital room one more time. This time, Dana answered. "Robin, he's not doing well. He won't see anyone. He wants to die." "Dana, I made him a promise 22 years ago. I have to see him, please." Something in Williams' voice made Dana say yes. "Come tomorrow. I'll make sure you get in." Williams didn't just show up. He showed up as only Robin Williams could. He stopped at a costume shop in Virginia, bought a white doctor's coat, fake glasses, and an absurd fake mustache. He practiced a Russian accent in his rental car, and then he walked into Christopher Reeve's hospital room dressed as Dr. Vasily Bulgakov, proctologist. "Mr. Reeve, good afternoon. I am Dr. Bulgakov. I am here to perform urgent rectal examination. This is very serious matter. Please prepare yourself." Reeve had been staring at the ceiling, same as he'd been doing for 6 weeks. He heard the ridiculous accent, and his mind, foggy from medication and depression, tried to process what was happening. He turned his head slightly, one of the few movements he could still make, and saw the fake mustache, the prop glasses, and then he saw the eyes. Those manic, unmistakable, beautiful eyes. Robin Williams. For the first time in 6 weeks, Christopher Reeve laughed, a full, body-shaking, chest-heaving laugh that made the ventilator hiss and beep, and Williams, still in character, kept going. Yes, this is very serious. We have had concerning reports about your lower regions. Very concerning. Must investigate immediately." Reeve tried to speak through the laughter. "Robin! You idiot! Robin! I do not know this Robin. I am doctor. Very qualified. See my credentials." Williams pulled out what was clearly a children's toy medical badge. Reeve laughed until he cried, and Dana, standing in the doorway, started crying too, because that laugh meant her husband was still in there, still fighting, still alive. When Williams finally broke character, he pulled off the fake mustache, set down his prop clipboard, and sat on the edge of Reeve's hospital bed. He held his friend's hand, the hand Reeve couldn't feel, and said quietly, "Hey, Chris, I'm here, like I promised." Reeve looked at him, tears streaming down his face. "You remembered." "Of course I remembered. Room 304, 2 a.m., 1973. You face your nightmare. I show up. That was the deal. I can't do this, Robin. I can't live like this." "Yes, you can. How do you know?" "Because you just laughed. If you can laugh, you can breathe, and if you can breathe, you can live." Reeve stared at his best friend. "What if I don't want to?" Williams squeezed his hand tighter. "Then I'll give you a reason. Every single day, I'll give you a reason to want to." "That's not possible." "Watch me." After the nurses came in, after Dana returned, after everyone else was in the room asking how Reeve was doing, Williams pulled Dana aside. "I need to talk to Chris alone. Just for 5 minutes." Dana nodded and cleared the room. Williams closed the door and sat back down next to Reeve's bed. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make you a promise, a new one, and I need you to let me keep it." "What promise?" "Every day you stay alive, I'm going to give you proof that it matters. I'm going to call you every week, minimum, more if I can. I'm going to make sure you never feel alone in this. And I'm going to prove to you that you're still Superman. Not the movie character, the real thing, the guy who inspires people just by existing." "Robin, I can't move. I can't feel anything. How am I supposed to inspire anyone?" "By staying alive. By showing people that even when everything is taken from you, you still have a choice. You can choose to keep going. That's more heroic than anything Superman ever did." Reeve's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are. And when you don't feel strong enough, you call me. 2 a.m., 2 p.m. Doesn't matter. You call me, and I'll remind you." "Why are you doing this?" Williams smiled. "Because 22 years ago you shared your lunch with a broke kid who couldn't afford food. Because you never made me feel less than, even when I was barely holding it together. Because we made a pact, and I don't break promises to my brother." Reeve nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try. That's all I'm asking." Before Williams left the hospital that day, he stopped at the gift shop and bought something. A small Superman pin, the kind kids wear on their backpacks. He pinned it to his jacket. And from that day forward, for the next 19 years until his death, Robin Williams wore that pin on almost everything he owned. Jackets, hats, backpacks, camera bags, always visible, always there. People would ask him about it during interviews. "Oh, I just like Superman," he'd say with a shrug. But it wasn't about Superman the character. It was about Superman the person. Christopher Reeve, it was a reminder every single day, a promise kept in a hospital room that nobody else knew about. Williams kept his promise. He called Reeve every week, sometimes twice a week. When Reeve was too depressed to talk, Williams would leave 10-minute voicemails doing characters, telling stories, just talking until the answering machine cut him off. When Reeve's insurance denied coverage for experimental treatments, Williams would call the hospital billing department and handle it, quietly, anonymously, no press releases. Just a brother taking care of a brother. What nobody knew was how much it cost Williams. Not just the money, though he spent hundreds of thousands on Reeve's medical bills, but the emotional cost. Every time he called Reeve, every time he heard the exhaustion in his friend's voice, every time Reeve admitted he was struggling, Williams would hang up and break down because he'd made a promise to give Reeve a reason to live every day, and some days Williams didn't know if he could keep doing it. But he did, because that's what the pact meant. Despite his paralysis, despite the ventilator, despite everything, Reeve kept fighting. He appeared at the 1996 Academy Awards to a 5-minute standing ovation. He directed films from his wheelchair. He wrote best-selling books. He became an activist for spinal cord injury research, raising over $100 million. Christopher Reeve, Paralyzed Superman, became a different kind of hero, a real one. And every time he wanted to give up, he'd remember Williams in that stupid fake mustache. And he'd keep going. In 2004, Christopher Reeve died from heart failure at age 52. He'd lived 9 years longer than most doctors predicted. 9 years of advocacy, of changing laws, of giving hope to thousands of people with spinal cord injuries. And when Williams spoke at Reeve's memorial service, he wore the Superman pin. He told the story about the Russian proctologist, and the entire room laughed through their tears. Then Williams said something that nobody expected. 22 years ago, Chris and I made a pact. We were kids, staying up too late, eating terrible ramen, and we promised that whoever faced their nightmare first, the other would show up. Chris faced his nightmare, and I got to show up. I got to be there for my brother. That's the greatest gift he ever gave me. After Reeve died, Williams kept wearing the pin. Every single day. In 2014, when Lewy body dementia started destroying Williams' brain, when he was hallucinating and terrified and losing himself, he'd touch that pin and whisper, Chris would want me to keep going. But the disease was too much. The silence he'd feared at 22 was finally coming for him. Not the silence of not performing, the silence of not existing anymore. On August 11, 2014, Robin Williams took his own life. He was wearing the Superman pin when they found him. At Williams' memorial service, Dana Reeve, who died in 2006, just 2 years after Chris, wasn't there to speak, but their children were, and Matthew Reeve, Chris and Dana's son, stood up and said, "Robin made my father a promise in 1995. He promised to give him a reason to live every single day. He kept that promise for 9 years, and even after my father died, Robin kept that promise. Because he taught all of us that the reason to live isn't just for yourself, it's for the people who need you to show up." Today there's a plaque at Juilliard School, room 304, where two strangers became brothers at 2 a.m. over terrible ramen. It reads, "In memory of Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams. They made a pact to show up for each other's nightmares. They kept that promise until death. They showed us that friendship isn't just about the good times, it's about staying when everything falls apart." The Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation has funded over $300 million in spinal cord injury research since 1995. And at their fundraising galas, they always show two photos side by side. One is Robin Williams in a ridiculous fake mustache, holding a toy medical badge. The other is Robin Williams at the 1996 Oscars, wearing a tiny Superman pin on his tuxedo. The caption reads, "Show up for each other." If this story about keeping promises, about showing up when it matters most, about friendship that survives, nightmares moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with someone who's shown up for you when you needed them most. Have you ever made a promise that changed someone's life? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible true stories about the bonds that define us, the promises that save us, and the love that keeps us alive.